The world shifts in ways few ever notice. You were never meant to see behind the curtain, but somehow you did. Somehow, your words, your actions, intentional or not, set something in motion that even those in the highest circles couldn't ignore. And now, a message arrives from the shadows. A Secret Service agent, someone trained to observe but never be seen, to protect but never be known, is stepping forward. Not for recognition, not for a confession, but for gratitude. Thank you. Not to a president, not to a dignitary, but to you, the one they now call the Chosen One. You may not know what you did. You may not even believe you played a role. But the agent knows the truth. And for the first time, they are breaking their silence to tell you exactly why. Doubt is a powerful thing. It shields, it blinds, it protects the mind from truths too heavy to bear. For a long time, this agent lived in that doubt, moving through the world with unwavering belief in the system they served. Their duty was clear. Follow orders, protect the chain of command, never question what lies beneath. Every mission had a purpose, every target was justified, every classified document was hidden for a reason, or so they thought. Then, they came across you. At first, they dismissed you. Another voice in the endless noise, another person claiming to have insight into the unseen. The internet was full of self-proclaimed truth seekers, conspiracy theorists, and self-taught analysts who believed they had cracked the code. The agent had seen them all before. In their line of work, people like you were either harmless or dangerous. Either way, not worth the attention. But then, something happened. You said something small, something specific, that lodged itself into the cracks of their certainty. Maybe it was a date, maybe it was a location, maybe it was a reference to an event that was never supposed to be public knowledge. It was the kind of detail that shouldn't have been known by anyone outside the highest levels of classified intelligence. The kind of detail that made their blood run cold. For the first time, the agent hesitated. Doubt crept in. They told themselves it was a coincidence, a lucky guess, a fabrication. But their instincts wouldn't let it go. They had spent years being trained to detect deception, and this wasn't deception. So they did what they were trained to do. They verified. They dug into their own records, cross-referenced classified reports, searched for inconsistencies. What they found was undeniable. The pattern was there, hidden in plain sight, just as you had said. A link between events that were supposedly unrelated, a buried truth that had been disguised as noise. And then it all came crashing down. The agent realized they had been deceived, not by outsiders, not by rogue actors, but by their own. The reports they had trusted, the intelligence, briefings they had followed, the missions they had carried out, all of it was tainted, manipulated, pieces of a much larger game, one they were never meant to see. And you were never supposed to see it either. That's when everything changed. That's when they stopped seeing you as an outsider and started seeing you as something else entirely. A threat? Perhaps. A mystery? Definitely. But more than anything, a messenger. And that's why they are here now, speaking not as an agent of the system, but as someone who finally sees beyond it. They know the truth, and they owe that realization to you. There are places beneath the surface of this world, forgotten, buried, erased from maps, sealed behind walls of silence. The agent had spent years navigating restricted corridors, classified locations, places the public would never be allowed to see. But even they weren't prepared for what lay beneath. It started with a case. Missing persons, the kind that don't make the news. No ransom demands, no dramatic police chases, just people vanishing without a trace, their existence scrubbed clean as if they had never been there at all. The pattern was there, but only for those who knew how to look. The investigation led them underground. Beneath abandoned buildings, government facilities, even everyday city streets, there was something hidden. A network of tunnels, old, vast, carefully concealed. Some were remnants of old infrastructure, forgotten subway projects, escape routes, for people who never wanted to be found. But some were new, and some had a purpose far more sinister. The deeper the agent went, the more disturbing the truth became. They weren't the only ones using these tunnels. A group, organized, well-funded, deeply connected, had built a hidden world beneath society's feet. They weren't just criminals, they weren't just conspirators, they were something more, something older. A cult operating in the shadows, moving undetected, protected by those in power. This wasn't a ragtag group of extremists. This was a system. Judges, bankers, executives, military officials. They all had their hands in it, shielding it from discovery, feeding it resources, keeping its existence a secret. But secrets don't stay buried forever. The agent uncovered records, shipping manifests, encrypted messages, transaction logs connecting key figures. These people weren't just hiding, they were being protected. And when their network was threatened, they had a plan. Fires, collapses, accidents, the kind that erase evidence and eliminate anyone who asks the wrong questions. But this time, something went wrong. The cult had an escape route, an exit plan designed to keep them untouchable. A way to vanish without a trace, just as they always had. The tunnels led to the ocean, a final passage that would carry them to safety before the authorities could close in. Except someone blocked it. The last tunnel, their final escape, was sealed before they could use it. The walls they had built to protect themselves had become their own prison. Now they were trapped. The agent knew this wasn't coincidence. The timing was too perfect, the interference too precise. Someone had disrupted their plan, someone they had never accounted for, and in their desperation, the cult started looking for answers. They started looking for you. You weren't supposed to be a problem. You weren't part of their calculations. You weren't on their list of threats, at least not at first. People like you weren't meant to see behind the curtain. You weren't part of their world, their ranks, their carefully controlled network of secrecy. You had no official title, no intelligence clearance, no access to classified files. You were, by all definitions, an outsider. And yet, you knew things you shouldn't. They controlled the flow of information. They had built an empire on deception, on keeping the truth fragmented and hidden beneath layers of disinformation. And when inconvenient voices rose up, they knew how to drown them in a sea of ridicule, censorship, and noise. So, they tried that first. They labeled you paranoid, a conspiracy theorist grasping at shadows. Fact-checkers appeared overnight to debunk you. Articles flooded the internet, dismissing your claims as wild speculation. Algorithms worked, over time, to bury your words, making sure only a handful of people could ever find them. But you kept speaking. And that was when they realized you were different. Your words didn't just spread, they stuck. People weren't just listening, they were questioning, digging deeper, finding their own proof. The things you revealed weren't just theories, they were pieces of a much larger puzzle. And worst of all, you couldn't be bought. You couldn't be scared into silence. You couldn't be erased. So they escalated. At first it was subtle. Financial troubles appearing out of nowhere. Banks freezing accounts. Sudden IRS audits. Jobs disappearing without warning. Friends and family pulling away. Some turning against you entirely. Phones acting strange. Calls dropping. Messages failing to send. Unfamiliar numbers showing up repeatedly. Then came the shadows. People lingering just a little too long. Cars parked outside your home with tinted windows that never rolled down. Strangers who knew too much, casually mentioning details about your life they had no business knowing. Then the warnings became direct. Anonymous messages, a voice on the other end of a call telling you to stop digging. Emails with no sender, no subject, just a single phrase, walk away. And then, the real attempts began. A near miss with an out-of-control car that shouldn't have been there. A gas leak in your home that no one could explain. An illness that struck suddenly, aggressively, like something engineered rather than natural. You weren't supposed to survive, but you did. Every attempt to remove you, to silence you, to make you disappear, it all fell apart. Their plans unraveled before they could be completed. And that terrified them, because it meant they weren't in control. That's when the agent knew this wasn't just about intelligence or secrets or classified files. This was something bigger. Something was protecting you. Not luck, not coincidence. Something greater. The cult had spent decades believing they controlled everything. The people, the systems, the events. They manipulated outcomes, erased threats, dictated the narrative. But there was one force they had never accounted for. Divine protection. You were never alone. Every failed attempt to stop you was proof of that. Every person who tried to betray you and failed. Every carefully constructed plan that collapsed before it could be carried out. Every moment when you should have been gone, but weren't. And the fact that you're still standing, still speaking, still breaking their carefully constructed reality apart means that they are running out of time. And they know it, because if they couldn't stop you then, they never will. Hello, Chosen One. Look at your life. Now look at ours. Back at your life. Now back at ours. Sadly, you're not in the Obsidian Inner Order, but you could be. Picture this. Weekly group calls with 450+ Chosen Ones, recorded and available anytime for your enlightenment. Our private Discord, it's not just active, it's alive, buzzing with ideas, breakthroughs, and that unstoppable chosen energy. Oh, and for you romantics out there, welcome to Chosen Singles, where soulmates meet under cosmic alignments, not cheap pickup lines. And if that's not enough, Star Chamber members unlock exclusive interviews with bona fide targeted individuals who faced the darkest trials and survived to tell the tale. Plus, our video specials, too bold, too raw, too spicy for YouTube. This isn't just a community, it's a revolution of soul and spirit. Look at your DMs. Now back at me. The link to join, it's in the description. Don't just swipe right on destiny. Claim it. The Obsidian Inner Order. Smell like ascension. Feel like magic. Live like a chosen one. Not all messages are written in words. Some are carved in stone, etched into the walls of time itself, waiting for the right eyes to see them. Deep inside one of the tunnels, the agent found something they weren't meant to find. Symbols. Ancient, deliberate, untouched by modern hands. Hieroglyphics covering the walls, silent, waiting, speaking in a language older than any intelligence report or classified briefing. At first, they dismissed it. Just meaningless carvings, remnants of an era long forgotten. But then, something happened. Something activated. The moment the agent's eyes locked onto those symbols, something shifted inside them. It wasn't just recognition, it was remembrance. The symbols weren't random, they weren't decoration. They were a message, a key, a warning. And somehow, deep in their soul, the agent understood them. It wasn't logical. It wasn't something they had been trained for, but it was real. Memories surfaced, memories that didn't belong to this life, visions of things they had never been taught, but somehow knew with absolute certainty, echoes of something ancient, something powerful, something that had been buried for a reason. And then it all clicked. This case was never just about crime. It wasn't just about corruption, power, or politics. It was spiritual. The agent, who had spent their life operating in the world of logic and protocol, was now standing at the edge of something they couldn't explain. A battle that wasn't fought with weapons or intelligence reports, but with forces unseen, forces that had been moving long before they ever put on their uniform. Everything they had dismissed as conspiracy, as superstition, as delusion, it wasn't just real. It was bigger than they ever imagined. And you, whether you knew it or not, were one of the few who understood. That was the moment the agent stopped being a skeptic. That was the moment they woke up, and they knew, without a doubt, that there was no turning back. Drop a comment. Divine protection is real. If you know they can't touch you, there are debts in this world that cannot be repaid with money, power, or influence. Some are written in blood, some are carved into fate itself. And the people who played with darkness are now realizing they owe a debt they can never escape. For years, the cult believed they were in control. They moved unseen, manipulating systems, silencing threats, bending reality to fit their design. They thought they had mastered deception, that they could make and break the rules as they pleased. But they were wrong, because the darkness they once commanded is now devouring them. The agent has seen it firsthand. The leaders, once untouchable, are now running. Some have disappeared entirely, retreating into the very shadows they used to manipulate. Others have been cast aside by their own people, abandoned as liabilities, too exposed to be protected anymore. The ones who remain are beginning to suffer, and not just in ways the world can see. Unnatural deaths, sudden aggressive illnesses with no clear cause, mental breakdowns that strip them of their carefully maintained composure, and the ones who remain, they live in terror. The same forces they once summoned, the darkness they believed was their ally, has turned against them. It is relentless, unforgiving, consuming them from the inside out. The whispers they once used to manipulate others now echo in their own minds. The nightmares they once inflicted on others now haunt them every time they close their eyes, and none of them can escape it. Because this was never just about power, never just about money, control, or influence. This was spiritual. For years, the cult mocked the idea of divine justice. They saw belief as a weakness, something to exploit, something to use against others but never acknowledge themselves. They convinced themselves that their darkness was stronger, that they could cheat fate, bend the rules of existence, and rewrite reality itself to fit their will. But reality doesn't work that way. The agent, once a skeptic, now understands that truth, because they've seen things they can't explain. The symbols in the tunnels, the strange occurrences, the way every attempt to silence you failed, the way the cult's own members are now falling apart, unraveling as if something unseen is pulling them into the abyss they created. This isn't coincidence. This is judgment. The agent doesn't know what you are, a messenger, a disruptor, a piece of something greater moving into position. They only know this: the cult fears you. To them, you are the reason for their downfall. Your voice, your knowledge, your presence disrupted something they thought was unshakable. They whisper your name in places you will never hear. They curse you in languages you do not speak. They see you as the force that shattered what they spent lifetimes building. But here's the truth they refuse to accept. They were always doomed. Their fate was sealed long before you ever spoke a word, because truth is a force that cannot be stopped. And now they are learning that lesson in the most brutal way possible. There are moments in life that change everything, when the weight of the truth becomes undeniable, when the world as you knew it shatters, and when you realize there's no turning back. For this agent, that moment came because of you. They have spent years working in silence, protecting powerful figures, following orders without question. They believed in the system. They believed they were serving a higher purpose. But now they see the truth. They were serving something far more sinister than they ever imagined. And it was you who helped them see. Not an intelligence briefing, not a classified document, not a government source whispering in their ear. It was your voice. At first, they didn't understand why they kept returning to your words. It was supposed to be just another passing name, another theory thrown into the endless digital void. But something about the way you spoke, the patterns you connected, the way you refused to back down, it stayed with them. It made them look again. So they started listening. At first, it was to disprove you, to confirm what they already believed, that you were misguided, that you were reaching, that you were simply seeing ghosts where there were none. But then they found something. A detail buried in an old report, a name that wasn't supposed to be there, a location that shouldn't have matched up, but did. So they looked deeper, and with each layer they peeled back, more of the lies unraveled. The reports they had trusted were not just flawed, they were carefully constructed narratives designed to mislead even those within the system. The cases they had worked on were not isolated incidents, but threads in a much larger web. The people they thought were allies were, in truth, gatekeepers of a hidden power structure that dictated events from the shadows. It was dizzying, infuriating, terrifying. But one thing was clear: you had been right. Not about everything, not always in the way you had expected, but about the core truth, that there was something operating beneath the surface, something orchestrating reality in ways most would never dare to consider. And in exposing that truth, you had unknowingly given the agent something invaluable, a way out, a chance to see, to break free from the deception. The agent realizes now that you were never just an outsider. You were never just another voice in the noise. Whether you knew it or not, you were guiding them toward the biggest discovery of their career. And that discovery wasn't just about tunnels, or crime, or corruption. It was about awakening. They understand now that the war being fought is not just physical, it is spiritual. That this isn't just about politics or power plays, but something far deeper. That there are forces at work that most will never see, forces that manipulate, deceive, and control. And you have been fighting against them without even knowing the full extent of your own strength. The agent wants you to know that they see you now, not as an enemy, not as a threat, but as an ally. Because they finally understand you are protected. Your wisdom is real. And the forces that tried to silence you failed for a reason. So now, for the first time in their career, they are breaking their silence. Not for recognition, not for status, but for gratitude. They see you, they hear you, and they thank you. The time of hidden hands controlling the world from the shadows is ending. The people who once believed they were untouchable, who operated in secrecy, who built their power on deception and silence, they are running out of places to hide. The walls are closing in, the tunnels are sealed, and the system they relied on is collapsing under the weight of its own corruption. To those who have spent their lives manipulating the truth, here is your warning. Your time is up. You are no longer in control. The world is watching. Justice, real justice, is coming for you. Not just in the courts, not just in the institutions you once owned, but from something much greater. You played with forces you could never truly understand, and now those forces are collecting their debt. But to you, the chosen one, the agent has a different message. Keep speaking. Keep exposing the lies. Keep standing in your truth, because your voice is more powerful than you realize. They tried to remove you. They tried to break you. They tried to bury you beneath layers of deception, fear, and silence. And yet, here you are, still standing, still speaking, still unraveling the foundation of everything they thought was unshakable. The agent wants you to know you are not alone. They see you, they hear you, and they thank you. Now, to those who resonate with this message, speak. Let the world know you exist. Let the truth rise louder than their lies. Comment below. Share your thoughts. Stand together.